Hi there, welcome to Lockdown Curiosity, God spotting in a pandemic. It's an opportunity during strange times to ask deeper questions. And I don't know what's brought you along, why you're watching this video now, but I assume that it has something to do with the fact that during these unsettling times, questions have been churned up in you that you're puzzled by or wrestling with. And perhaps you're looking for some resources or some vocabulary or some coordinates by which to sort of navigate your way through them. Well, we hope that these sessions will be useful to you, and we look forward to accompanying you and helping you in any way that we can. Each session begins with a 10-minute reflection, which will be premiered via YouTube, and it's followed immediately by a Zoom discussion on that question. We hope you can join us for that. Just need to follow the Zoom link in the email you would have received when you registered. If you haven't registered, you still can drop us an email at explore@kidlington-baptist.org.uk, and we'd love to hear from you. You can join us for the discussion this week or in subsequent weeks. Today our speaker is Paul Hewitt, who was a professor of physics at Oxford University, and he's going to be reflecting on the question, where is God in a pandemic?
When I was a boy, the British Prime Minister was Harold Wilson, who was known to have a dry sense of humour and a quick wit. And one time a journalist asked him, "Prime Minister, is it true that you always answer a question with another question?" Wilson replied, "Who told you that?" Now, when I get asked the question, as I did in one form or another a few weeks ago, where is God in a pandemic? I feel like answering with a question, why do you ask that? Now, replying to a question with another question isn't a politician's way of avoiding the question, because really to give a helpful answer, it's sometimes a good idea to realize and to help the questioner realize that behind every question or most questions are some hidden assumptions. And so to give the best answer, it's good perhaps to question some of these assumptions. For example, when someone asks, where is God in this pandemic? It may be that they want an answer that confirms their atheist belief, or might even say their faith, that there is no God. The assumption being that if there was a God, he wouldn't allow a pandemic, or if there was one, he would step in and make sure that no one was hurt. Of course, the assumption there is that we would know what God would do or should do in any circumstance. But most people, perhaps, you may be one of them, have a genuine question here. We are genuinely puzzled as to why God would be allowing a pandemic, and what is he doing in it? Where is he? And so behind that question, there might be an assumption that if we had made the world, we might do a better job of it. We, for example, wouldn't have nasty viruses or bacteria. We probably wouldn't have any sort of disease or disasters. On the other hand, the assumption then is that we could do a better job than God. But let's examine that assumption. Could we imagine making a world with gravity that held things together so that life could exist, but a gravity that wouldn't kill us when we stepped off a cliff? When we realize that viruses, and there are tens of thousands of them out there, and bacteria are essential for life as we know it. So there are things like that, both good and bad as far as we can see, even in our own bodies. We have cells that are healed by a process that also causes cancer. So life seems to be a strange mixture of good and bad, of joys and sorrows. But perhaps we might say, well, perhaps it was better not to make life in the first place. But are we really in the position to make that judgment? When, for example, we look at the world that we have here, we pollute it. We have driven animals to extinction. We're even with our climate changing activities threatening the very existence of life on Earth. So we don't seem to be doing a very good job at looking after this world, let alone thinking or imagining we could make a better one. Because the Bible tells us that God made this world good, and he meant good for its purpose. So maybe there's a reason why life has this strange mixture of good and bad, joys and sorrows. And so we perhaps could think of what that might be. And we have an example in our own lives when two people come together to make a child another life. They do it as an expression of their love. And they create in that way an object of that love in the hope and expectation that that child will grow and return that love in response to that of the parents. But that love has to be free. It has to be one that isn't forced or controlled in any way. The child has to be free to respond to the parents' love. And so we exist in a world that God has made, but where he won't overwhelm us with proof by stepping in at every instance to correct things or to protect us from every eventuality. That doesn't mean we can't see God here. When we look at the universe and its awful majesty, we look at the beauty and nature all around us, and we're aware of our own conscience that sounds like a voice of God guiding us to what is good and what is evil. We look around us and perhaps we see the love of God in the self-sacrificial service of our doctors and nurses and care workers. And that echoes what the Bible says, that we love because God first loved us. But perhaps most of all, we see the love of God in the person of Jesus Christ, in his life and his death and his resurrection. Jesus was God coming into this world to experience its pain and its evils. And ever since then, down to the ages, men and women have experienced the presence of God in their lives, enabling them to transcend suffering. Now, this isn't a case of making the suffering go away. No, it's not as simple as that. And there are no easy answers. But what this relationship that comes through Jesus with God does is to give us a sense of that bigger picture, that this life is part of a longer story. And we begin that relationship by taking that step of faith or trust. And when we do that, we begin to experience God's presence and a peace that passes understanding and a joy that stays with us in all the circumstances and all the ups and downs of life. And it's clear that we can't understand everything that's happening around us or even to ourselves personally. But we can be sure when we look at Jesus that we have a signal there that God does love us and he will be with us through thick and thin, and that we can come to no eternal harm. So when we ask, where is God in a pandemic? Well, he's where he's always been, right here with us.